Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews, and guess what? It's a big freaking week. Before we get started this week, just to let you know, so the next 2 weeks, because of the holidays, there's going to be a limited amount of books, but I'm going to take a break for 2 weeks. So that way we can recharge the batteries, get ready for 2022. Hopefully it'll be a better year. It's actually been a good year for comics. So even though the world seems to be coming to an end and with the pandemic and everything, we still had a lot of great comics. So I'll be off for the next couple weeks, and then we'll do a catch up, which I may record during the holiday, but I won't actually post it till after the holiday. Until after the first of the year, but we might do a wrap up with the stuff that does come out. So just to let you know, there won't be any regular reviews for the next couple weeks for the video. So let's get going, because there's a absolute ton of books this week. First up, we have Batgirls #1, written by Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad, with artwork by George Corona. So what this is, I mean, the good thing is that, yes, it spins out of events of like the Joker War and the Scarecrow and Fear State and all that stuff. But the good thing is you don't need to have read any of that stuff. You just kind of have to know that Gotham is kind of a mess right now. And so what it is Barbara is now mentoring Cassandra Cain and Stephanie Brown because they've been accused in a video of setting off a bomb and destroying stuff. And of course they haven't. It was a setup. So now she's kind of mentoring them because it's like they're her Robins. That's kind of the basic premise that's set up here. And I think the one thing that I really enjoyed about it's fun. It's a charming book. And I really have to give Cloonan and Conrad that they are having fun with this book. I mean, they're having fun, and they feel like kind of teenagers, I guess you could say. They capture their personalities really well. I think the good thing is they actually have a really nice handle on Barbara, which is really nice, because Barbara's a great character, and obviously she's been through a lot. But I think having her mentor Cassandra and Stephanie is actually a really good plan. And she's kind of like a mother figure, and of course they drive her up the wall, which is pretty obvious, but it's really, really a fun book. And on top of that, that it's a really good script, is Corona's artwork just makes this book pop. It is absolutely gorgeous. This is a really great looking book, and I really love the kinetic energy that his artwork brings to it, because he really just brings it to just all together. It's a really great looking book. I mean, that's the first thing you'll notice right off the top. But then when you start reading it, and then how the story and the art go together, I really have to commend the team on this one. This is really a good book. I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun. It has a great amount of charm to it, and it's well worth picking up this week. Next up, we have Wastelanders Wolverine #1. Written by Stephen DeKnight, with artwork by Ibrahim Mustafa. So I kind of picked this up as a blind buy this week, and it's actually quite interesting. So what it is, it's post-apocalyptic. All the heroes are dead except for Wolverine. He seems to have survived the apocalypse, and he's carrying around a baby Hulk. It's Bruce Banner's baby, but it's like a little baby Hulk. So in a lot of ways, the best way to describe it's like the Mandalorian. He's taking care of baby Yoda, and so Wolverine's taking care of baby Hulk. So the nice thing about it's a one and done story, and I will give DeKnight that he sets it up to where new readers who don't know anything about this post-apocalyptic theory in these stories, he gives you enough, and he explains kind of what has happened, and there's also a preface that kind of kicks you all in. Once again, it's just a nice little one and done story. It stands on its own. It's kind of an older Wolverine, and it's really quite neat. And then I really like Mustafa's artwork. It's really nice here. He does a really nice. I love his baby Hulk. His baby Hulk is just really freaking adorable, and it's really it was a surprising book. I mean, it's just one of those. It's nice, one and done. You can just read it and it's good. I was pleasantly surprised by it. Next up, we have Cloaked #1, written by Mike Richardson with artwork by Jordi Amengol. So the best way to kind of describe this is yes, it's Batman and Robin, but it's more of a vigilante sort of thing. Like, he actually like kills the bad guy. He'll just like, take him out and everything. And so that's really the big difference. I think it was interesting, but I think ultimately it kind of just comes off as a Batman knockoff, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But I don't think Richardson really brings that much new to the premise of that. And it's okay. It was a decent read. I will say, Gold's artwork's nice and everything. And it was a decent read and everything. I think it's one of those where it's kind of just not good. It's kind of not good enough if you're on a budget. I mean, or it was okay. I mean, it wasn't bad. It was okay. And it just, that's where I'll leave it. Next up, we have Lunar Room #1, written by Danny Lohr with artwork by Gio Spacito. So what this is it kind of starts off, there's a robbery in a mystical museum. I guess that's the best way to describe it. And there's this woman who she discovers that something's missing, and that also there's been a mystical incident, and that something has gotten out. Think of like Ghostbusters, where the ghosts have gotten out. And so she has to go track them down, and then she ends up, after long days of work, she decides to go to a wrestling match where it's like monsters versus people and monsters, all sorts of stuff. And then the guy who stole or tried to steal one of the pieces is a mage, and then they end up having to do a wrestling match, and he brings out, apparently she has like a wolf side, I guess you could say. It's like the werewolf kind of thing. And it's just, I think there's some interesting ideas. I think really the flaw that Lohr has here is that this first issue is kind of messy. It kind of jumps around, where there's like these little pot shots of like chapters where it's like, okay, where she goes to, capture the mystical beings that have escaped and everything. And it's just really choppy to read. It wasn't bad. It was just a little on the choppy side. And the other thing is, I didn't connect with the characters like I would have liked. They weren't bad or anything, but I don't think there was any compelling reason to care about them. And I think that's really the big flaw, and that's where I think the book kind of failed. Sapito's artwork is actually nice and everything. It does a nice job, but overall, I think the story just never quite gets off the ground, and it's messy, and I would say skip it. Next up, we have Helcate's Will #1, written and drawn by Oleander Zanfardino. Now, this is the best way to describe this. This is a slice of life type story. It's about this girl who's an artist, and a friend of hers says, "Hey, we're gonna do this version of Rent, the play Rent, and we want you to be a costume designer. And I know you want to do it because even though you're an artist, you're also a great costume artist, and we're gonna pay you." So that, so that's enough to get her to hook. And so what it is she knows some of the people that are in the group, and then there's some people she doesn't know. And then towards the end of the book, one of her, I don't know if it's her ex-girlfriend or just somebody she knows, and they have kind of a yin kind of a rough relationship. But it's one of those things. It didn't necessarily blow me away, but I did like it. And I think what I liked about it was that Zanfrandino took the time to introduce the main characters and everything and kind of give you a sense of getting to know them, and then setting up this situation. I mean, obviously this first issue is a bit on the exposition heavy side, but I did enjoy it. And I really enjoyed the artwork on it too. It was actually really nice. I liked the idea of the limited color palette that was used. And it's just, it's one of those books that if you're definitely looking for something different, this is something I would definitely check out. And I think it was a bit surprising, not overwhelming, but I think it shows promise, and I think there's enough here for me to give it a second issue and kind of see where the story goes, because I did like it. Next up, we have Demon Days Rising Storm #1, written and drawn by Peach Momoko. So I think this is the fourth one of this story, and unfortunately they're coming out quarterly. So, but the good news is there is a previously on Demon Days, so it does catch you up. So this issue really is setting the stage for the conclusion, which is going to be out in March of next year. So this one has Storm and Thor, and they're trying to say, hey, you're going after your sister, but you need to know what really happened, because that had been blocked out of her mind. And so that's, I don't want to give too much away, but that's the basic premise of the story. So it sets up her going to have the showdown with her sister on after what has happened when they were kids. So that is that. Once again, I've actually really enjoyed these books. I will say it is a little frustrating that they're coming out so slowly, but they are really worth the wait. And of course, the story's really good. And of course, her artwork is absolutely gorgeous. It's a really good looking book. I've enjoyed them, and I would say at this point, if you've missed any of them, just wait. There'll be a trade of the whole series, of the whole story when it's finished. So if you've missed it, but I will say I think you can read them on your own, on their own. But I think it's much better if you kind of know the backstory. Next up, we have Robin and Batman #2, written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Dustin Nguyen. So after the first issue, so what's interesting is this is definitely a Robin story. It's really how it's a very early. He's like, Dick is just becoming like a teenager. I'd say he's around 11, 12. And so this issue is Batman gives Dick a birthday present. And the birthday present is going up to the Justice League satellite. So there's that, and he says, okay, you have to be good, and I'm going to introduce you Superman, don't freak out and everything. And so he meets the Justice League, and then it's like, then they send him to the kids' room, which is where the Teen Titans are. So you're just like, oh, that's really, I have to really give Lemire that, because that was just like, oh, that's just perfect. So the Justice League go off on a mission. So what Robin does is he convinces the rest of the Teen Titans that they should go on missions. So Hawkman's on watch, so they sneak past Hawkman, sneak into the computer, and figure out, hey, we can do superhero stuff. And they do. They go on little missions, and nobody knows that they do it and everything. It's really, really fun. I really love this book. I love this book because I think we're getting to see a side of Dick Grayson that we really haven't seen, where he's kind of become Robin, but he's still becoming Robin. And it's kind of like that age where you're not quite a teenager, but you're not a kid anymore. And I think Lemire has really captured that essence in the story, and it's really, really intriguing. And then of course you have Nguyen's artwork, which is just gorgeous. It's really gorgeous. He's doing the watercolor art, which is absolutely fabulous, and it's just a really good book. I love the first issue. I really love the second issue, and it's really a must buy this week. Next up, we have My Date with Monsters #2, written by Paul Tobin with artwork by Andy McDonald. So the premise of this is that if you have a nightmare, the nightmare actually comes into reality. And so what it is they've developed these pills that suppress dreaming. But if you forget to take the pills, then guess what? The monsters come out. So what happens is when the daughter's in school, one of the classmates has not been taking the medicine, and one of a new demon, a very powerful demon, comes out and threatens her, and then the mom and the monster that is kind of like their pet or friend. I don't know how to describe it, but that's the best way. Goes to try. They do well. The demon gets away, and then they're left with kind of picking up the pieces. So we also kind of learn about the mom who was the one who developed the thing that let the demons out. And so the other thing that's going on, there's all that, and then the daughter is trying to set up the mom to go dating, and it's really, so there's this really weird mishmash with the story. And in a lot of ways, it shouldn't work as well as it does. But I have to give Tobin that there's a lot of concept here, and he's actually keeping it all under control. It's actually paced really well, and surprisingly good. And then McDonald's artwork's actually really nice here. He does a good job. There's a scene where the monster friend runs through like a dimension hole to get to the daughter faster, which is really just really great looking. And so I've been surprised. This is one of those books that's not going to blow you away or anything, but it's really enjoyable. And I have to admit, I think I'll look to see where the third issue goes with the story, because it's been quite intriguing so far. Next up, we have The Thing #2, written by Walter Mosley with artwork by Tom Riley. So Ben, the Thing was going on a date with a girl. The girl gets kidnapped, and that's how we left the first issue. So now there's the girl's getting kidnapped by the bad guy. The bad guy in The Thing. So the beginning of this issue, they have a big fight. He knocks Ben out, but there's this kid who watched the whole thing, and he hides Ben from the cops so they don't find him. And he followed the bad guy. So he followed him down the sewer. And then when they go down in the sewer, there's this whole other world, this whole other city where the bad guy's keeping the girl. And so it's really interesting. It's almost like you could just read this issue by itself. I mean, the first issue does set it up, but it just read really well by itself. And Mosley is just kind of having fun. I think what he's captured here is the charm of who Ben Grimm is. And I think that's the thing. He's really writing a Ben Grimm story who happens to be the Thing. And then the story not only is really good, but Riley's artwork really just has a really nice, it's a bit of a cartoony style, but it really fits this. And he's able to capture the action, the drama, and sometimes the absurdity of the parts of the story. And this has really been a big surprise. I'm really enjoying it. And like I said, I like the first issue. I think the second issue was even a little bit better, so that's always a plus. So next up, we have Newburn #2, written by Chip Zdarsky, with artwork by Jacob Phillips. So the first issue was quite a big surprise for me. So what it is, you have this detective that is basically kind of works for the mob, but he doesn't work for a specific mob. He works with all the mobs, but he's like a gun for hire. He's like the PI. So when there's a problem, so in this issue, there's one of the mob storage houses that stored drugs gets burnt down. So he has to kind of go fill it in or figure out what has happened. And so, as we have from the first issue, he now has a female sidekick that is learning. He's trying to convince. Well, he asked her to come on as like his assistant, and she's like debating whether she should or not, and she's talked to people about it. So there's kind of that subplot of her being with him that's going on. But what's smart about what Zdarsky's doing here with the story is, in a way, he's doing like, and he did it with the first issue, you kind of have a murder mystery, and that allows you to tell all these other elements of the story, the kind of the backstory and getting the character development, but with the main story is a fairly simple murder mystery type thing to figure out. It allows him to tell the backstory and what else is going on with the characters while telling this simple story, and it's really a smart move. And then Philip's artwork is really nice here. I really enjoyed this, and like I said, the second issue I think really built well on the first issue and kept the momentum of that first issue. So I still think it's worth checking out. Next up, we have Hulk #2, written by Donny Cates, with artwork by Ryan Ottley. So what we have is, so Bruce Banner is actually driving the Hulk like a robot in Pacific Rim. That's the best way to describe it. So he ends up, so in this issue, he ends up going through another dimension, and so there's that going on, and why something is trying to catch him, while also trying to drive the Hulk, and he doesn't want to drive him too hard because he'll break him. And so that's kind of, it really is a continuation of the first issue. So if you haven't read the first issue, it's going to be a little tough to read the second issue and kind of get what's going on. But with that being said, I am enjoying this. I think Cates is developing a really interesting story. It'll be interesting to see where he goes with this, because there's a nice twist at the end of the second issue that I won't give away. But one of the big draws is obviously Ryan Ottley's artwork, which is really fabulous, and he really, it's very obvious that Cates is writing a lot of really unique stuff. Visual stuff for Ryan Ottley to draw. So I think there's sort of the holodeck elements where the Hulk has to fight stuff to give power to the suit, to the Hulk suit, and Ottley really takes that and runs with it, and it's a neat book. It'll be interesting to see how he takes a story, because this is obviously the first story arc, where I'm interested in the first story arc, but where's he going to take it after that? I think that's the other intriguing thing. So it's still off to a good start. Next up, we have The Rush #2, written by Cy Spurrier, with artwork by Nathan Gooden. So what it is, the basic premise is his mom's looking for her son who's gone off for the gold rush, and she landed at the end of the first issue. She came to the town, or she was getting just to the town where he was last reported to be, and there's this mysterious thing. There's mysterious things in the woods, and so this issue, she gets to the town. So now we kind of find out that there's weird stuff going on in the town. People are like know there's weird stuff going on in the woods, but they don't say anything, and they're like, you just need to leave, you're a woman, get out of here. And she's like, screw you, I'm finding my son. So that's kind of what this second issue, it really builds upon that first issue, and kind of digs deeper into not only her story, but we're starting to learn about this weird stuff that's going on in this town. So once again, it's kind of interesting. There's a lot of, I will say that the script is pretty thick, but it's not overwhelming in the sense of, I mean, there's times where, you really need to kind of step back and let it come in, but Spur is keeping it all under control, and I like how he's unfolding the story quite nicely. And Gooden's artwork is really, really nice. It's a really interesting book, and it's a really interesting premise. So I'm intrigued to see where the story ends up going, because like I said, it's one of those, I'm intrigued. I like it, not quite love it, but I'm really interested in seeing where they're going to take the book. Next up, we have Batman the Imposter #3, written by Madison Tomlin, with artwork by Andrea Sorrentino. So this is the last issue of this mini series, and I will say it's interesting because in a lot of ways, when we do get the reveal of who the imposter is, it's not a big shock because you can kind of almost see it coming, who's the imposter. But I think that's what I really have to give Tomlin. It never was really about the imposter. It was really about a story about the double-sided part of Bruce Wayne and Batman, and how the psychiatrist was really trying to figure out who is Bruce and who is Batman and who is Batman and who is Bruce. And that's really what this story is about. And it also, I like the fact that Batman got that crap beat out of him most of the time, this is kind of early in his career. And I think that element in doing it in that period is actually quite interesting, and I think that I really was impressed overall with the story. It was a solid story, and I think it was a unique take on Batman, because right now there's so many Batman books, but I think I have to give Tomlin that he came up with a really interesting story. And then you have Sorrentino's artwork, which is absolutely gorgeous. And it was really a wonderful book. And I really enjoyed it. If you missed any of it, I know there'll be a trade of it coming out. So like I said, if you can't find the regular issues, that'll be out hopefully early next year. Next up, we have Defenders #4, written by Al Ewing, with artwork by Javier Rodriguez. And what I love about this is, one, that Ewing is really put together a unique team, which has always been, I think always when people do that with the Defenders, they're kind of a ragtag team. They're not, Doctor Strange is like the biggest character in there. And I like the fact that he's really put together a ragtag team. But what's really interesting is that in a lot of ways, this story, the stories that he's doing, is just way out there. It's really freaking nuts. There's some wild stuff, but I think there's two reasons why it works. One, the story's really interesting, that first and foremost, but it's really Rodriguez's artwork that really makes this book pop. And it really just, it's obviously he's writing this for him to do the artwork, just like the way he lays out the book, the way it's colored, how it's really just, it's out there, but like not in a way that is not enjoyable or understandable. It's actually quite amazing. It's one of those books that just like literally your eyes are just like popping out of your head, just like, oh my God, where's this going to go? And then it's nuts, but yet it still has a solid story to it, while the visuals are amazing and there's a lot of weird stuff, but it never really strays from the main storyline of that they're trying to figure, that the path that they're following along to figure out what's going on. And it's really an amazing book. And like I said, visually, it's just stunning. And so I have to admit, I've been really surprised by this, and I still think it's worth checking out. Next up, we have the Harley Quinn, the animated series, the Eat, Bang, Kill Tour #4, written by T. Franklin, with artwork by Max Sarin and Eric Owen. So once again, this follows up the ending of the second season of Harley Quinn, where the Kite Man and Poison Ivy are going to get married. That didn't happen, and now Harley and Ivy are on it's Hope and Crosby with them, and then Commissioner Gordon's chasing them. So this issue kind of deals, they end up crashing at Livewire's girlfriend's a house, and there's that, and then there's like there's like a giant stink monster that they see on the news. I really have to give Franklin that in a lot of respects she has studied the Harley Quinn show very well, and in some respects I've said this. I believe I said this before. I like the second season, but I didn't like as much because I think I think part of the problem was I think when they started doing that longer storyline that it just it didn't quite work. But what I have to give Franklin is that she understands that balance that I think the first season had, where you kind of can do this crazy stuff but have a continuing story. Where I think the problem with the second season for me was they struggle with the continuing story and didn't quite have the fun, where Franklin is bringing not only a longer story, but she's bringing the fun, which is really what made the first season really wonderful. And I've enjoyed Saren. Saren only does the first couple pages, and then Owen does the rest of it. He does a really wonderful job. It's a really good looking book. They capture an even better style than the animated series, because I think it has a bit more cartoony feel and look, which I think actually works better. So it's definitely it's really a good looking book. If you're a fan of the animated series, you should be checking this out. This is a really fun book. Each issue it's just a blast. Next up we have Primordial #4, written by Jeff Lemire and with artwork by Andrea Sorrentino. So this issue we have the two monkeys and Laika the dog in space. And so what this issue a lot deals with is we find out that they're actually on this spaceship. Once again, the only way I can describe it, think of like these three animals in 2000 at the end of 2001 somewhere in space. Well, they've discovered that it's a spaceship, so they're going to try to get back home. But we also have the subplot, or the other half of the plot, of the lady who raised Laika to the dog in Russia, and the scientists from the U.S. trying to figure out, hey, now that they've abandoned the space program, there's something going on. So they're trying to figure it out. So there's that. I don't even know how in some ways to describe this book, but in a way, that's what I love about it, that it's not easy to describe, because it's just such an interesting concept of, it mirrors the space program that didn't happen with like 2001, and then you have talking animals. So that's what you got here, and Lemire is pulling it off really well, and Sorrentino's artwork is just really blowing me away, because when he draws the stuff on Earth, it's one style, but when you have the animals and in space, it's a completely different style, and it really helps with the visual pacing of the story, and it really is wonderful, and I'm really enjoying it. But I will say it's definitely not for everyone. It's really a really wild, out there concept, but I actually really like that it's something that you really have never seen before. Next up we have Joker #10, written by Matthew Rosenberg and James Tynion IV, with artwork by Francisco Francavilla. That's right, Francisco's back on the book for an issue, and once again, it's a one and done. You can just read this. So what this story takes place after the Joker has shot Barbara and paralyzed her. So she's home with her dad, who has been put on leave from the police force because of this. And so his wife, Barbara, not daughter, the wife, Barbara, is having problems with her son, because he's fascinated with the Joker. And so what this story is about the son, and that the Joker, and we find out, and this is not a spoiler because it tells it right away, that there's an imposter Joker. And so that's what this story is. And like I said, it's a one and done. It's really good. The big win for me is always Francisco Francavilla's artwork. He's just a brilliant artist, and it's really wonderful. It's a great story. Like I said, one and done. It's well worth checking out. Next up, we have Berserker #6, written by Keanu Reeves and Matt Kent, with artwork by Ron Garney. So this issue, so we've learned a lot about Berserker and his past and how he how we learned his origin, all this stuff. So what this issue is mostly they send him and a team on a mission, but the mission is kind of somewhat set up to fail. But what's interesting is with the story is, so after the somewhat failure, so there's Berserker and one of the other the soldiers that's left. So they have to try to get to a different point to get rescued. And so what it is so there's that they're trying to get to the rescue point, but there's also Berserkers having flashbacks of like the how this kind of mirrors what he's already done. So in a way, this is kind of the middle, because it's going to be 12 issues, so we're kind of hitting the halfway point. So in a lot of ways, this issue is kind of telling a lot of story, but not necessarily moving it hugely forward, which is understandable at this point. So, but once again, I've really been pleasantly surprised with this book. The writing is really quite good. Garney's artwork is really, really nice, and it's just it's been a surprisingly good book. This is one of those issues that's not gonna really blow you away, but definitely continues to build on the story nicely. Next up, we have Wonder Girl #6, written by Joelle Jones with artwork by Leila Del Duca. So we have she's still trapped in, I won't say she's still on Olympus basically, and so Flora's stuck in Olympus. We know that Jerry's there to help her out. You know, Jerry's like, this is a love-hate relationship they have, and so she's still trying to get her way out, and that's what this issue really kind of is. And we also kind of find out that the reason that she was brought there wasn't quite what we thought, and there's kind of some behind the scenes, like maybe maybe Zeus doesn't quite know about this whole little game that's going on behind the scenes. So there's that, and then of course Flora's trying to get out. And the irony is, it looks like Wonder Girl and they're trying to get in. So it looks like we're going to have a big convergence. I believe it's going to be next issue. But once again, Jones is really, story-wise, she's knocking it out of the park. I really enjoy her artwork, but I have to give Del Duca that she's really stepped up to the plate. She really makes this. She's not necessarily she's not doing Joelle Jones style, but it does fit into what her style looks like. It's very much Del Duca, because I've seen her artwork and other stuff. It's definitely her, but it does, I think she makes sure that it kind of has a similar style in some respects to what Joelle Jones has set up, just as far as the characters look and everything. So it's still a good looking book. I'm really enjoying it. It'll be really interesting to see how Jones finishes up this first story arc, but it's so far it's really, really good. Next up, we have Wonder Woman 782, written by Michael W. Conrad and Becky Cloonan, with artwork by Marcio Takara. So once again, we're still, Wonder Woman has come back to Earth from the dead, and so now one of the things she needed to do was return Siegfried's sword to his grave. So that's that. So there's that, but there's also something going on with she's being stalked by Dr. Psycho. And so there's that going on, and Dead Man's in a dead body, and and then she still hasn't seen Steve. Steve knows she's back, but they also now are getting we have a new villain that sends these glass Wonder Womans after her. So there's kind of a lot going on. I think at this point, Conrad and Clunan have really, the death of the Wonder Woman story was really good. I think where I'm struggling a little bit now is that they're starting yet another kind of big story arc, which is fine, but I think it's really tough for new readers to kind of jump in, and it's a hard thing to go from one giant storyline to another. Now I'm enjoying it, but like I said, I think there's a point where I'm starting just a tad to get a little long storylined out. Now, I'm not saying it's bad or anything. I'm just saying that it might have been better to maybe do some little shorter ones, right? So that way you can kind of get people on the train to Wonder Woman. So that's just my opinion. I do think I do think it's still good, but like I said, I'm starting to get a little fatigued a little bit. I have to say that Takara's artwork is really nice. And doing a really good job here. But like I said, we'll kind of see how it goes in a few issues. But I think we'll have to see where they kind of take it, and maybe this story arc won't be as long as I think it might be. Next up, we have Mazebook number 4, written and drawn by Jeff Lemire. So now we have the father has discovered the secret way to the maze world. And so this issue really is him trying to work his way through the maze. And there's a dog that is there that's kind of helping him. So this is really, the story is really kind of about him and him trying to not only find his daughter, but remember his daughter. There's that going on too. So that really is what this issue is. And I think what's interesting is not only how this story has progressed, which has been amazing, but how Lemire actually draws this issue where, and I'll put the artwork up for it, where it's like there's pages where it's like he's actually, not every some of the page is blank because he's actually literally drawing the maze with panels, and the way you read the story is like it might be, this way or that way, but it's very intriguing. It's really intriguing. I really love this. There's a great cliffhanger ending, and I can't wait to see how he finishes this all up. I'm just really, I love this book. Book is really just blowing me away every single issue, and I can't wait to see how it all wraps up. And then finally we have 'Tis the Season to be Freezin, 80-page giant. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stories. So for, the first one is Robin and Mr. Freeze and One Snowy Night, written by Alan Burnett and Paul Denny, with artwork by Jordan Gibson. Then we have Vixen and the Super Pets, written by T. Franklin, with artwork by Yancey Labatt. Then we have Bizarro, written by Medito Totoro, with artwork by Jason Howard. Then we have Firestorm and Killer Frost, written by Jeff Tamil, with Justin Mason doing the artwork. Then we have Polar Boy, written by Rick Bernochovic, with artwork by pencils by Travis Mercer, inks by Norm Rapmund. Then we have Harley Quinn and Blue Snowman, written by Tara Roberts, with artwork by Eric Battle. Then we have Flash and Captain Cold, written by Bobby Moynihan, with artwork by Popman. And finally, JLQ, written by Andrew Wheeler, with artwork by Megan Hetrick. So as I always say with these specials, you have to break it down. Like, these are roughly like $2 a story. There's 8 stories, but anyways, a little less than $2. And unfortunately, I really have to say this one is a big disappointment. It's really sad. Honestly, the best story is the first one, and unfortunately, being the first one, it didn't help the other one's case. I have to say the Robin Mr. Freeze is absolutely stunning. It's set in the Batman the Animated timeline. and it's really a wonderful story. It's really charming. It of course Denny and Burnett obviously know that universe quite well. I really have to give Gibson does a really nice job of doing that animated style and capturing that look and everything. It's a really heartfelt story, and I think they really capture what they did with Mr. Freeze in the animated series, and it's really wonderful. The Vixen and Super Pets was just kind of okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It just kind of eh. The Bizarro was interesting. It was I think that was the only other one that I thought was intriguing. But I think the where I struggled a bit with it was that Totoro, for me struggled a little bit with having the whole story take place in the Bizarro world, where it kind of it was a little bit jumbled. I will have to say Jason Howard's artwork, it was really nice, and I liked it. I think it was a little too jumbled for its own good. On the Firestorm Killer Frost was just really average, and I kind of hate to say it, the artwork was not that great. It was really just kind of not good. The Polar Boy was another one that just like was okay. The Harley Quinn and Blue Snowman, I think had a decent idea, and it was an okay story, but didn't really do much. The Flash Captain Cold is it's an adorable little Christmas story, and that one, it was pretty basic, but at least it was enjoyable, and the artwork was nice. The JLQ is basically the LGBT characters from a lot of the DC universe having a group. They're JLQ. And I think I really wanted to like that story, and I don't think it's bad, but it just really it just sat there. It really just sat there and did not really go anywhere, and it just ended up being kind of a little sad in the end. Because it didn't really go anywhere, and it was really disappointing. And I have to say, this is a skip. It's too expensive, and you literally only have one story that is truly worth spending money on, and I cannot say that justifying $10 for a short story is just not going to cut it. So that it's really disappointing, because the Robin and Mr. Freeze story is absolutely brilliant, but it's just not enough for $10. That's exactly what it comes down to. So that's going to do it. Sorry, it's been a long show, but we had a ton of books to get through. As always, public service announcement. I get all my comics from Pulp Fiction Comics in Long Beach. Ryan runs a great store. Annie and Eduardo are great. They offer a great pull service. Give discount for the pull service. They offer 30% off trades and graphic novels. And it's a great little store if you live in the Long Beach area. There is a sister store, same name, different owner, Chris and her team. She owns it, and her team. They're in Culver City, Pulp Fiction Culver City. Also, they do the same thing, offer discounts and everything. Great store. So if you live up in the LA area, but as always, please support your local comic shop. It's very important. Please, if you can, support them, and instead of buying from Amazon or online or something, support them. Support your local. Definitely support your local comic shop. As always, please be safe out there. Things are getting a little tough with the COVID. Please get vaccinated. If you've been vaccinated, get your booster, wear your mask, be safe, especially with the holidays. I think, unfortunately, with Thanksgiving, that's why we're having a bit of a surge now. And as always, we end it with be kind. Being kind doesn't cost anything. Being kind is great for not only you but everybody else. And I do want to wish everybody a happy holidays, no matter how you celebrate it. Please have a great holiday. Take care of yourself. Take care of your families. And just share the love of the holidays, no matter how, like I said, no matter how you celebrate it. And also with New Year's, please have a safe New Year's. Just, if you drink, just get a taxi, get a Lyft. just be safe and have a good holiday, and we'll see you next year. So this is the last one for the year. So thanks for watching. It's been a great year. Thanks for all the feedback and everything, and please like and subscribe and share it with your friends. And everybody take care of yourselves, and be kind to each other. All right, take care. Happy New Year.